Hello, my name is Nitin Pradhan, and I'm the CEO of Scale Up USA, and I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. And today I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic, and the topic is better alternatives to IIT, NIT, or IIIT. And so before I get started, I want you to do three things because we're going to put a series of videos and I want you to understand and learn from all of them. So the couple of things I want you to do is to first like our social media page and actually click the bell icon below so that the next videos that come, you will be intimated about it and you're going to be able to plan better. The second thing is I want you to share this video with friends because the path that I'm going to suggest, it'll be good if a couple of your friends are also with you. That way you really have a shared goal and a shared destination. And finally, I want you to actually make sure that you visit Career Trajectory, and you can get to Career Trajectory by going to scaleupusa.xyz. All these three things are listed at this bottom of the page. So I want you to do that. So let's get started. So, the reason I actually decided to talk about this topic, better alternatives to IIT, NIT, or IIIT, is that I was sitting in Washington, D.C., and I was watching Netflix. And I came across this series called Quota Factory. And I've done my engineering in India, and I've then come to the US and I've done more management programs here. And I saw this whole series called Quota Factory, and I saw the situation that exists today in India relating to IITs and admissions and all the stress that is putting in. And I remembered, what it was when I was young and I was trying to do this and I was trying to get into engineering and I wanted to go to US. And at that time there were not many alternatives for Indian students, but today there are many, many better alternatives that exist. And I don't think most of the Indian students or parents are very aware of those. And so what I thought I will do is actually, look at what are some of the other alternatives. In fact, I think they are better alternatives than IIT, NIT, or IIIT. Now, of course, that does not mean IIT or any of these other institutions are bad. They're pretty darn good. But of course, when you get into global competition, you will see that there are much better alternatives. And I'm going to show you some data that will allow you to actually think about this in the right manner. So what I want to do in this video is to actually show better alternatives, explain why they are better, and then explain how you get into those better alternatives. Because without that, what's the point of knowing that there are better alternatives? So that is what I'm going to do. So the first thing I want you to be aware of is that, when it comes to IITs, and these are numbers for 2021, about 2.7 million students attempted the 2021 JEE main exam. And if you look at the number of seats that are available at an undergraduate program in IIT, there are about 16,000 seats that are available. And so if you look at all the numbers and the number of students who are trying and repeat students and who take exam multiple times and you do all these calculations, you will find that the acceptance rates for IITs are somewhere between 0.5% and 2.5% depending on how many students are taking repeat exams out of this 2.5 million students. And what I'm here to tell you is that is a very, very low number. And what that means is unless you're absolutely brilliant genius, the chance that you get into IIT or not get into IIT could be just a stroke of luck. That day you may not feel well. That day you are nervous. That day you don't think well. And suddenly you may not get into IIT. There's no test done where the same people actually take the test multiple times and we see what their scores are for IITs. So what I'm saying here is getting into IITs is pretty much a stroke of luck. If you're lucky, you will get in. If you're not lucky, you will get into NIT or something else. And if you're really unlucky, you will not get into any of them. And then you will have to start looking at alternatives. And I want to actually show you some better alternatives because then you will have a separate path or an alternative path or a path that you can actually take together with IIT as you plan for IIT. So let's look at what these paths are. So the first thing I want to do is to actually talk about the IITs, how they are ranked in India, what their acceptance rate is, and what the world ranking for these IITs are. So if you look at, the Indian ranking, there is an organization called NIRF, which actually ranks organizations, the educational organizations in India. And if you look at their ranking, according to them, Madras IIT is number one, Delhi IIT is number two, Bombay IIT is number three, and so on and so forth. You can obviously see, how these IITs are ranked. And then you have the NIT Tiruchirappalli, and then you have the NIT Karnataka, which are coming 9 and 10. Now, if you actually look at the acceptance rates, I've sort of given the benefit of the acceptance rates being about 2.5% for each of them. It actually may be slightly different depending on which IIT you're going, but this is the general acceptance rate that's generally accepted. So, it's about 2.5% is the maximum opportunity that you have to get into IIT. Actually, it could be even much lower, as we discussed earlier. But now let us look at the last column, the column on your right-hand side. And that's the column of world ranking. These are the QS World Rankings for 2022. QS is an organization which ranks global universities and global education centers. And if you see there, the IITs are not doing too well. If you look at Madras IIT, they have ranked 255. That means there are 254 educational organizations which are ahead of Madras IIT. Then the Delhi IIT is 185, Bombay IIT is 177, so on and so forth. And if you look at the NITs, they are not even ranked. They are so low that QS does not even rank them. So what you need to understand is what is considered top of the line in India may not be considered top of the line in the world. Now again, that does not mean IIT is bad. I'm not bad-mouthing IIT. I'm just telling you that there are better organizations by all kinds of standards where you can learn more and it might be more fun to actually join. So that's the first thing you need to understand. Yes, you can get into IIT. Yes, they are very selective, but in a global competition, they are not ranked very high. Now let's look at some other numbers here. So now here I have got some top US universities, and I have given the acceptance rates for 2021, and I've also given the QS World Ranking for 2022. So the top of the rank is Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. It's ranked number one, and its acceptance rate is 7%. Stanford is coming number three. Its acceptance rate is 5%. Harvard is ranked number 5 in the world. Its acceptance rate is again 5%. Caltech is ranked number 6. Its acceptance rate is 7%. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of these things, but what I want you to understand are two things. Look at the acceptance rates of these institutions. These institutions are far superior in world ranking than IITs, but they have an acceptance rate much, much better than an IIT. What that means is the chances are high for you to get into one of these institutions rather than IIT, and you'll actually get a much better education. So this is something which I absolutely want you to understand. You have an opportunity of a much better alternative for education, and which also allows you a much better acceptance rate. So you have a chance of getting into this institution at a much better rate. And I want you to understand it. I want you to pay attention to this, because this is something which Indian students parents have not really focused on. So let me put one caveat in this discussion. So if you look at the average quality of students applying for JEE, for IITs, the average quality of students is not very high. It's actually pretty poor. Now, there might be 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 20,000, maybe 50,000 students who are really good. But by and large, the millions of students who are actually taking the JEE main are not up to par. You need to understand that. So your competition is not that great, but there are lots and lots of people applying. Now, when you're applying to US universities, the average quality of students applying to US universities is really good. Remember, in IIT, mostly Indians are applying only for the IIT. When you're going to US universities, you're getting competition from the best of the best. You're getting people from China. You're getting people from Japan, Germany, UK, Japan, all those kind of places. And so you are in a tougher competition. But because those institutions are so much larger and they accept a lot many people, and the acceptance rates are much better, you stand a much better chance of getting into these US universities than getting into an IIT. So now I want to go to a very, very important chart. And this is a chart of universities in US whose world ranking, the QS world ranking in 2022, is around the world ranking of IITs. If you remember, the world ranking for IIT Mumbai, Bombay was about 177. The first university here, the University of Florida, its ranking is 173. So it's coming just before, the IITs. But look at its acceptance rate. Its acceptance rate is 31%. Now compare that with the IIT acceptance rate of 2.5%. Remember what that means: if three people apply, one of them is going to get in. If you apply to IIT, your chances of getting it are much, much lower. If you actually go to University of Minnesota at Twin City, it's ranked at 186 and the acceptance rate is 70%. The chances are high that if you are a good student, you will get into this university, and it is highly ranked. It's higher ranked than most IITs. So just look at these numbers that we have here. Stop this video if you want. Look at these numbers and look at the acceptance rates for these universities. There are some universities like Wayne State University and all, which have an acceptance rate of 68%. Now, I just want to go back to the slide about IITs and just talk about that. So here is the slide about IITs. Look at the QS rankings here. IIT rankings are between 177 and about 600. That's where most of the IITs fall in the world ranking. These universities here, again, are somewhere between 173 and 520. About the same range as IITs are ranked in the world. But their acceptance rate is far, far better. And what that means is if you apply to these universities, you have a much higher chance of getting in, and you are actually assured of getting education which is at least as good or if not better than IIT. So that is the better alternative. That's what I'm suggesting. That's what I want Indian parents to know. Now, when I was studying for my engineering in India, I didn't know how to get to US. I didn't know this kind of data. And therefore, I was just going out and doing what I could. And then ultimately, I came here to the US on a full fellowship, and I have done exceedingly well in US. So I've been very happy here. I want you to also learn that. Now, of course, if you can get into IIT and get into the major that you want, more power to you. But you can't guarantee that. And that is why you need another alternative. So there are these two paths that exist. And what I want to tell you is that the first path on top is the IIT path. The path number 2 is the path that I am suggesting for Indian students and parents. So let's look at the IIT path. The IIT path, the Indian students start in high schools, and then they first start preparing in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Some of them even prepare in first year of college, and they are preparing for IIT by give the JEE main. Some of them pass the JEE main, then they do the JEE advanced, and then if they are in the all India rank, they can get into IIT. Now, one thing you need to understand: even if you get an all India rank, if that rank is not high enough, the chances are you will get a major in IIT which you may not like, something like a metallurgy or some other kind of major. If you are looking at something like computer science or something in IIT, you probably need to come in the first couple of hundred in the AIR, the All India ranking. Which means not only should we get into IIT, you will have to be really a topper in IIT. Very few people are going to get there. And so even after that, assuming you get into IIT and you complete IIT, then most of the people from IIT generally tend to come to the US. So you'll now apply to come to the US, and hopefully you'll get a fellowship in some US university. Ultimately, you will land up in US. So if you look at this progression, there are many, many steps here. And it's normally the path that Indian students are following. It's a much slower path because you're going to take 4 years or 5 years to complete IIT. It's much more restrictive because the seats in IIT are so less. It's much more tougher because you can't really get into IIT unless you are really, really good. I am suggesting another alternative path. If you are in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, or even in your first or second year of engineering, start preparing to actually come to the US not for master's but for bachelor's degree. If you can prepare for coming for bachelor's degree and you apply in your high school in your senior year, vast number of colleges and vast number of options of majors open up. There are about 4,000 colleges in US. Most of them are exceptional. And so you can join any of those colleges. You have lots and lots of options, lots and lots of geographies, and these colleges have excellent infrastructure. So the chances that you get into at least some of them in the major that you like are very high. And then you can just be in US in a 1 year's time. So you have shaved off almost 3 years. So this is a better path. It's a faster path. It's a more flexible path because there are options to go to many universities which are very good, and it's easier to get in. And unfortunately, most Indians, parents and students have not figured this out yet. If you look at most of the international students who are coming to the US, they normally come to do a bachelor's degree. That's where most of the international students are coming. That trend is not true for Indians. Indians mostly come to the US for master's degree. And what I'm suggesting is you should take the technique that other students from other international countries are coming in. So my suggestion is you should look at this option, and that is why I'm suggesting that discuss this video with your parents, discuss this with a few friends so that you all can plan together and apply together, because now you can learn from each other, and we're going to provide you some resources of how to do it well. And this is what I actually suggest to you. So, later in this video, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to compare IITs with US universities so you can actually see who does what better. I'm going to provide some detailed advice for parents and students. Make sure that you actually listen to that. That's coming at the end of this video. So make sure that you do this. So again, I want to get to the route to come to the bachelor's degree in US. Okay. How do you come to a BS degree route in US? So this is the route that I'm suggesting. When you are in your high school, whether you are in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, or first year of college, you probably are doing examinations to get into, you're doing the JEE to get into IIT or NIT or IIT. That's what you're doing. While you're doing that, you should also take on this program called Career Trajectory. I am actually going to show you how to access it. But if you really need to know how to access it, you see it right at the bottom of the screen where it says visit career trajectory. All you need to do is to go to scaleupusa.xyz on the internet, and you will see a career trajectory on the top menu. So you visit career trajectory, join career trajectory, and it's going to explain to you step by step how to get into US colleges and universities. And I am suggesting the earlier you do, the better it's going to be. Because here's the issue. When you're studying for JEE, a lot of things that you're studying for JEE are actually going to help you to get into US colleges. And when you are studying for US colleges and the exams for US colleges, they are actually going to help you to study for JEE. So they're sort of complementary to each other. There are certain differences. There are certain things that you need to study for US colleges, the SATs and the ACTs, which are different from JEE. But that's okay, because you are learning the things that you need to learn to be competitive in and around the world. So this is the route that I am suggesting to you. You need to start thinking about bachelor's degree in US early. You need to actually intimate your parents and friends so that you have a circle that's going to go around and try to get into US for bachelor's degree. So when you come into US, you actually have a few friends who have also joined and come with you. You start as early as possible because it takes some time to get ready, just like it takes time for JEE, examination preparation. You need to go through career trajectory, go step by step, plan, get early, and then ultimately you will land up in US for US colleges and universities, and you probably will have a much more successful life than trying to do the IIT, NIIT, and IIT route. So how do you get to US? And I discussed this a little earlier, but I want to get through it in this particular chart. If you wanted to go to IIT, the chances are that you're going to take some kind of IIT preparation courses. And there are all of these classes, some sort of are held in quota. That was all the, the series about, quota factory and the number of institutions that are there in quota. But of course, there are these kind of institutions all across, the Indian continent. All major cities, Bombay, Pune, all of them actually have these kind of cities. If you want to come to the US, you need to really look at, this career trajectory program. You can go to Scale Up USA, and you can actually take this program online. It's very affordable. That's why I'm sort of listing it, because one of the issues that comes for most Indian students is cost. And this is a program that you can take online. And even if you are in quota and trying to do an examination preparation for JEE, you could actually learn from Career Trajectory. And Career Trajectory is a unique program because it sort of prepares you and your family to get you to the US. It's a joint work that needs to be done so that you can actually get in there. And I'm going to talk a little bit when I actually explain what Career Trajectory does. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick demo of Career Trajectory, because that is your preparation path to come to the US. So I'm going to show you where it is. I'm going to show you what it does. I'm going to show you the curriculum so you can actually join it. And then I'm going to go back and try and explain the difference between IITs and US colleges and universities. And then I'm going to provide some guidance for parents and students. So I absolutely hope that you can take that guidance, because that's going to be very important for you to make this transition. So this is the Scale Up USA website. You can get to Scale Up USA by entering the URL www.scaleupusa.xyz. You can see that in the corner, and you see the platform that's available here. It's an excellent platform. And if you see on top, there are a number of programs that are available. What you need to really do is to go into Career Trajectory. So just click Career Trajectory and you'll get there. So Career Trajectory is the program that's providing affordable, quality, self-paced US planning and education program for high schoolers and youth. And the program is really, really low cost. Other programs of these kinds are, charged couple of $1,000s to tens of $1,000s a year. This program is really around $9 per month. So that's how low it is. You can join it here for a 1-year program. You can obviously read all these things. So I would encourage you to read it in detail. Here are 3 options of how you join. You can join a 1-year plan. You can join a 180 days plan. You can join a monthly subscription. So there are multiple things that are available. But here's what I want you to understand. There is a very detailed curriculum of what you're going to learn here. And it's important that you learn this before you apply, because if you don't learn it, you will make very, very costly mistakes. Mistakes like joining the wrong college, mistakes like going to the wrong geographical area of US, mistakes like selecting the wrong major, all kinds of mistakes, mistakes like taking a very high interest loan. I have seen these kind of mistakes being made by Indians and other international students. That is why we have actually come up with this program. And it's very simply laid out. If you are in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, you should be able to learn and do this. I also encourage that when you actually join this program, you make sure that your parents also watch with this program. Absolutely do not share this with your friends, because they need to buy their own subscription and do it. Otherwise, when you are actually working, they will start looking at your data and you'll start looking at their data. So you don't want that. So obviously you need to register. This program is registered by family. And here is the curriculum that's there. Here we are talking about mistakes that students make that you should not make. Then we are sort of preparing your mind for success. This is all psychological. So we are sort of preparing how to do that. So there's a lot of discussion here. Then there's a complete section for international students. That's you, Indians. You can actually figure out, what you need to do. And then, of course, there are some strategic questions that you need to ask yourself and answer yourselves so you can better prepare where and how to apply. Then we talk about college timelines. And again, we normally suggest that you start in your 9th grade, your freshman year. But of course, if you have not done that, your later years, you can still catch up. But here's the whole plan, what you do. Then there's this big section about how to select a major. Unlike IITs, where you really don't know what the heck major you're going to get, when you're applying to US universities, you have a choice of thousands of majors. And you should select the right major because that major is going to help you grow faster and earn more money. So how do you scientifically study and actually take the right optimum major is discussed here. All kinds of resources are given here. And then, when you're applying to US universities, you need to show a personal brand. US universities want students who have a personal brand. How do you create that personal brand is all discussed here. This is something which IITs don't really care, but US universities do care. Then, of course, there's the whole issue of standardization tests. Just as you are giving JEE, there's standardization tests for US. That's the SAT, that's the ACT. You can do those. There are certain universities which don't require either. So if you don't want to do that, you have some choices there. But again, there's a lot of description about test taking strategies and others. Then, of course, you need to select which college you're going to go to. And as I said, there are about 4,000 colleges and universities in US. Most of them are really, really good, but there is a strategy to selecting the best fit colleges. And we discuss that and we talk about the resources that you should use to select the right kind of college depending on your budget. Then we have a couple of admission videos. How do you really apply for specific colleges? We have actually done this so you can actually see how you think through and how do you apply for colleges. So there are some workshops here that we have included for admission to US universities. Then we have something very interesting. We have something called the data pilot. And this is the data that US universities actually report to the US federal government or the national government. And this data tells you in detail how many students are coming, from where are they coming, how many people are getting scholarship, what kind of scholarships are they getting. So you can actually start looking at similar data for your university and actually learn about it. So you can actually get this data for the university you are applying and find out this information. So we have given a number of data samples for California universities, but pretty much all universities in US would have such a thing. And so we are going to tell you how to do that. So that's something which you need to know. And then, of course, you need to be able to apply for financial aid for colleges. Many universities in US are need blind. And what that means is if you get into the college, the chances are, if it's a need blind kind of university, if you can't pay the money, they will figure out a way to actually get a combination of loan and financial aid and scholarship and actually allow you to get into the university. So again, there are all those kind of things that you need to research, but there's a strategy that you need to have for financial aid. So that gets discussed here. Then, of course, finally is the all important aspect of creating a strong application for US colleges. US college applications take some time because there are essays and recommendation letters and transcripts and all those kind of things are there. And so you need to understand this. So you need to take some time and learn this, because ultimately if you want to get into the US, you need to have these basics. And most Indian students and their parents do not have these basics. And what happens many times with Indian students and parents is they go to a local consultant and they try to get the work done from them. Now, a couple of things happen here. If you go to a local consultant, they are not very aware, and so they have a few colleges that they have looked at and they'll try to push you into those colleges. Most Indian local education consultants also get a kickback from the university. So if they send you to a higher priced university, the more kickback they would get. So the chances are they will push you towards a higher priced university, which means you are actually going to pay much higher tuition so that your education consultant gets more money. So we have seen this often where education consultants charge 25, 30, 40,000 rupees for admission into US colleges and universities, but then they are getting a couple of $1,000 worth of kickback once you join that university. You don't see that, but your actual cost is much, much higher per year because of the kickback that's happening to many of the educational consultants. So be very careful about going to educational consultants. I would suggest pick a program like what we have, which is low cost, high quality, and do the work yourself. You'll also get the advantage of having the confidence and learn what the process is, and you will actually get into a college of your choice. So that is what I would suggest here that you should do. So there is a very detailed discussion about how do you do a great college application. All the things that you need are right here. So make sure you have that. And then finally, one more thing that we have included is saving strategies for students. So obviously, if your student is going to come, you are going to come to US. There are some saving strategies you can deploy so that you save money when you come here. Obviously, US is costly, and so you need to be able to save that time. So that is something which I would suggest. So all of this is again available when you go to Scale Up USA. Here it's on Scale Up USA on top. You go to Career Trajectory, and then you can select the plan you want. I would suggest selecting the yearly plan because I think you will need to refer to all these things throughout the year when you're applying. So this is what I would suggest. Again, it's very low cost and very good. Now that I've explained you how to get there, I want to go back and actually talk about the differences between US colleges and IITs. So let's get there. So now I want to talk about a little bit about study in USA. So you saw the whole program there, and these are the 8 or 10 things that you need to be able to do before you can apply to US. You need to have a strategy for education in USA, and that program will help you. You need to have a college application timeline for USA. Again, that program helps you. You should be able to select an optimum US college major. Do not just select the major that you think you like, because in US there are thousands of majors and you can select the really right major. If you select the right major, your success in US and globally is much higher than you select the wrong major. Then of course you need to select the best fit colleges in US. There are so many colleges, so many good colleges. So obviously you need to select the right colleges. There's a strategy how you select that. As I said, we have discussed that in the program in Career Trajectory. Then of course you need to plan for US standardization tests, ACT, SAT, all those kind of things. Then of course you need to do the branding for top US colleges. You should apply for full or partial financial aid, potentially look at getting scholarships from the college or outside. You may need to take a loan, student loan. So how do you go about taking it? How do you get low interest loan? That's a study that you need to do. And then finally, you need to actually build a strong college application. So there is some work to be done here, probably much, much lesser than trying to study for IIT. The chance of getting into the US colleges are much, much higher, and the colleges probably will be much, much better. So again, this is, I think, is a better strategy. Again, I'm not suggesting IITs are bad. It's just that in the global competition, there are other very good universities that you can actually get into. So again, this is a question that we get asked often by students and parents. So I'm actually going to go out and talk a little bit about it. What is the difference between colleges like IITs in India and US colleges? So let me talk a little bit about it. When you look at IITs, the cost for education for the student is very, very low. That's because the Indian government is subsidizing, most of, the tuition year. So you can actually study in IIT for a very low cost. Of course, what that means is lots and lots of people apply and your chances of getting in are much lower. The admission rates are, as you said, very, very low. And of course, unless you get a very high all India rank, the chances that you get your own major are very, very low. So that's again what you need to understand. The next thing that you need to understand, and I'm going up, down, and then coming up this way, is that, IITs mainly deal with engineering subjects. And there are lots of students who may not want to do engineering, may want to do something in science, and there's not much that you can do in sciences or arts or other commerce areas in IITs, while as in US colleges there are all kinds of options. The next thing that you need to understand is because you are an Indian student applying into an Indian college, obviously you don't need to get a visa. And then, of course, one of the other things that you need to understand is, because the Indian government is funding and subsidizing IITs and funding IITs, but the funding is not that well. The funding from Indian government is not high enough. the institutions, the IT institutions typically have a lower infrastructure, lower R&D, average quality of teaching. So that is happening because the funding just for these institutions in India is not very high. And of course, finally, IITs, when you get in, they are much more intense, less fun. And ultimately, when you get out of IIT, you really are going to look at Indian opportunities. And if you want to go to US, you will have to start that whole circle again. So that's what happens if you're actually going to IIT. Now let's look at what happens if you go to US. First and foremost, the cost for study in USA is much higher. So you need to account for that. Now, of course, your parents may have some money. You might be able to take some loan. You might get some financial aid. You might get some scholarships. Some combination of that will have to be figured out. And that's why I say start planning early. The next thing that I will tell you is the admission rates in US universities, colleges much higher. The chances that you get something of your liking very high. And of course, there are literally thousands of majors available in US colleges and universities. The chances that you get a major of your liking almost certain. Then, of course, in US universities, you can do engineering and non-engineering topics. You can take any fancy topic, right from history to Mayan history to environment to climate change to whatever you want, you can actually get it. So that's a big, big advantage. Now, of course, because you are coming to study in USA and you are an Indian student and an Indian citizen, you will require a US visa. So that's a step that you will need to go. Then the next thing that I want to tell you is that the US colleges are very well funded. And they're funded because of various things. The federal government funds them, the state government funds them, the local government funds them. They have major sports programs which bring a lot of money. They have high tuition. There are lots and lots of things that are happening. There's research that's happening with private industry. So a lot of money keeps on coming into US universities. And that's why they are much better funded. That allows them to have a great infrastructure. Typically, US universities will be at the forefront of global research. And obviously, they have an above average teaching quality. And the last thing that I will tell you is universities in US are just more fun. I did my engineering in India and I did my MBA and other things in US, and the US was much, much more fun. And I think it'll be for you too. Indian educational institutions are more rigorous and intense, especially the engineering colleges. The US universities are much more fun. They make it an interesting way to actually study here. And then finally, the thing that I want you to understand is that, when you are actually studying in a US university and pass out, you will get an opportunity to do practical training in US. There is a path to citizenship that you can actually apply, but essentially the whole globe becomes an opportunity. If you don't want to live in US, you could try Canada or Middle East or Europe or other places. These universities are globally known. So the opportunities are not just in US, but globally. That is why this becomes a really great alternative. And as I said, you could study for IIT and go after the US, or you can go after the US only and not do IIT, or you can do IIT and not do the US. There are three options here. My suggestion is at least go out and do both. And of course, if you're not sure that you're going to get into IIT, then focus on the US activity, because that might be a better alternative. It's going to require some planning, and it's going to require planning not only with you, but your parents. And that's why you need to take this career trajectory together. Not necessarily that you all sit together and do it, but as a family, you need to understand what is going to be required to get into the US and be prepared for it. So that's what I would suggest here. So my advice to Indian parents and students. So one thing that I've seen with Indian parents and students, they are very risk averse. They are not innovative. They are fairly scared to take aggressive steps, and so they wait and they don't take decisions. I would suggest take some decision, take some risk, because without risk, there's really not much reward. So that's first thing. The second thing that I will tell you is invest some money. Invest some money in career trajectory. You're not talking of tens of thousands of dollars. The reason we created this program was not that we wanted to make a ton of money. We just want to break even. We just want to help students across the world. So invest in this affordable program, because if you don't invest and try what you're doing yourself, or go to a local party who doesn't understand stuff, ultimately you're going to pay tons of money more. I can give you an example of a friend of ours who actually went to a local education consultant, and the local education consultant was able to get him into a US college. And the US college was very, very costly, almost $70,000 per year. So the student actually spent close to $300,000 in loans, while he could have actually got a much cheaper college at the same quality. But if that would have happened, the education consultant would have not got any kickback. And so the education consultant pushed this person into a high cost college, and the parents landed up paying for this money. And now this person is actually paying back this very large loan. And I see this happen all the time. Now, we of course don't take any commissions, we don't take any kickbacks. We are just straightforward providing you advice. That is why I'm suggesting that. And so take this career trajectory, go through the program, see if it's the right way to get into the US. And if you think you are ready for US, then actually go after it seriously, apply to US and actually get into the US colleges and universities. So that's what my suggestion is. Again, so I want to end this program with saying all the best. And again, I want to remind you a couple of things. First, make sure that you actually like or click the bell or whatever the right thing you need to do at the social media that you're seeing this program, so that you can get access to future videos. That's one thing. Second, try to get your near friends and family to actually also look at the US option. Ask them to see this video, ask them to join Career Trajectory, because what you're going to find is when you come to the US, if you alone come versus 10, 20, 30 of your friends come, it's going to be much better. And again, you can't share the program that we have with them, Career Trajectory, because it's an individual license. But what I will suggest, it's very cheap program. So I would suggest that you ask them to join that, and a couple of y'all can join. Now, what will happen is when you get admission in US and you come to the US, you'll have a whole bunch of your friends who are also joining in and coming there. So you will have a community in US that you can work with there. So that's the second thing that I would suggest. And the third thing that I'm suggesting is, go and visit Career Trajectory at scaleupusa.xyz. You can see the write-up here at the bottom of the screen. Take this. And so I wish you nothing but the best. Hopefully you will get into IIT or NIT or IIIT. Or if you take my advice, you might actually be in US. I might see you somewhere on the street here in US. Thank you so much.